Hey, my friends, welcome to the month of December. We've made it to the final calendar month of this calendar year. What a year 2023 has been. What a year. I don't know if I feel ready to do a wrap up of it yet, to be honest. I feel like some of 2023 was a little much and it continues for another 31 days. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do a summary of 2023 towards the end of the month. But right now, let's just focus on the energy for December, shall we? So I feel like it's overall such a beautiful energy, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited about everything that I feel that is here for us in December and what's coming in 2024. So the card that I pulled way back in January when I do my year ahead Tarot and Akashic reading for the whole year, for the whole collective, was the Queen of Swords, which, as you may recall, hold on, I'll feature her a little bit better. Everybody always wants to know what deck this is that I use. It is the Moonchild Tarot by Danielle Noel. She is an amazing artist, and she has several tarot decks as well as oracle decks. So check her out. She's on Instagram, Danielle Noel, or the Moonchild Tarot. Okay. So you may recall that last month, the card that I pulled was the King of Swords. And I remember in January when I pulled these cards, after seeing like what was coming through for Q4 and October, it was just as a reminder, the flavor of all of Q4 was the Death card. The flavor for October was the Moon card, which is like the triggering of the dark night of the soul experience, whether it's your first, whether it's your 18th, is just that energy of just being in the thick of it and the confusion and just feeling like something is off, something doesn't feel right, I'm not comfortable, this isn't where I want to be, like I'm not warm, I'm not dry, I'm like everything blah, but I don't know what way to go, everything is dark, everything is misty, I can't see any sense of direction. And then the energy that started to come through in November was like clarity. That was the King of Swords, this slice of clarity, this, just cutting through that darkness and that illusion and that fog. And then for December, when I saw that it was the Queen of Swords, I understood, way back in January, I understood what a big fucking deal this is. It's a huge, big deal because it's like, the king who represents our consciousness, our ability to conceptualize our cognition, the king who represents the masculine height of that cognition, that consciousness, and the understanding of the truth is also being... what are the words I want to, like, it's like he steps forward and then bam, his queen joins him. So to me, what I understood back in January when I saw this was like, whoa, we're going to go through a very big consciousness up level in these last 2 months. Now, of course, these energies aren't contained by the false Gregorian calendar. So as I'm pulling the cards, because my mind and my whole entire psyche is unfortunately programmed with the Gregorian calendar, the cards that I'm pulling for each month is nonetheless a representation of the energy of the month. But the point that I want to make is that I feel in my observation of having done these readings for quite a long time, doing weekly energy reports, monthly energy reports, and yearly tarot and Akashic readings, I've noticed that a lot of the times these months initiate that energy, and then we see it kind of like echo out in different ways in different people's individual lives. And I feel like it's becoming increasingly challenging to talk in terms of generalities for people in my energy reports, because I feel like we are now experiencing this on such an individual sort of granular micro level. It's hard to read for communities anymore. the community mentality, I think, is dissolving at the moment, and we are going very much on our own individual journeys, like more so than in the past at this time. And I don't think this is the end, or like we're somehow outgrowing community mentality, but I feel like we are being pulled inward on our journey, kind of like on a hermit's journey right now, all of us on our own unique path, so that we can sort through the shit that we need to sort through and then come back together in a newly formulated rendition of our sort of like collective communal consciousness. Hopefully that made sense. So what does it mean for us? Like that, whatever. Back in January, I was like, shit, we're going to go through a consciousness upgrade. What does it mean for us now that we're here? Now that we're here in December? So I don't know about you. In November, I did experience a tremendous amount of clarity that I wasn't expecting. I thought I was going to be getting clarity in some other area of my life that I was going to be able to apply on a more mundane level, but that was not the case. But I still, nonetheless, received some clarity that was so revolutionary for me personally that there is like the before version of Amy and the after version of Amy. And it really felt like just a lightning bolt, like boom, I see. Other people have told me that they've been experiencing clarity, but I also know some other people that are, it's 222 here, magic. Other people who are experiencing a lot of ongoing confusion. So, I believe that the clarity, if it has not come yet, I believe that it is coming. But also, like, it could be that the clarity is not coming in the area of your life that you were hoping it would come or you're looking towards, but it has come in some other area of your life. The clarity from November is continuing on through December. However, it's taking on a different energetic expression. So in November, it was like this masculine clarity. The masculine is very strong. It is, it has a forcefulness to it without it necessarily needing to be invasive or intrusive. But there's like, it packs a punch. Like there is like some oomph behind that masculine energy of clarity. The King of Swords archetype, how I interpret him, is he is the divine exalted masculine who like is mainly left-brained, mainly cognitive. So he mostly operates from the mind, and that's beautiful because he has also activated his heart and he can move easily between the two, and he holds both in equal counsel. But he mostly, like, it's like his throne is in the mind, not the bullshit ego mind that is like hijacked and full of dramas and things like that, but the mind, the higher thought, the wisdom. So that's the King of Swords. He is like everything we want from a wise man. It's a masculine energy. It doesn't matter what, like for you as a human being, what your body parts, how they're formulated. But the King of Swords is a masculine archetype energy. The Queen of Swords, typically the way that her archetype comes through to me is like she is a guardian of secrets, and she draws very, very firm boundaries. And also you cannot bullshit the Queen of Swords. She knows what's up. She sees right through your nonsense. Like, doesn't matter who else you can fool. You cannot fool her. But the way that she's coming through in the context of December, in the context of following November, in the context of all of 2023, and what I feel to come in 2024 is she is this ongoing reclamation of our consciousness. So the King of Swords last month was the reclamation of our consciousness, like a very, very firm, decisive, like daddy's coming home to get his kids and you better fucking be afraid. If you've been, like, I'm talking to the false matrix, you better be afraid. If you've been filling the children's minds with your lies and your toxic nonsense because they don't belong to you and they are being reclaimed now. So the king steps in first, and then the queen steps in, and it's a reclamation of our consciousness. But whereas the king is like firm, like, I don't know, like a knife, or not a knife, a sword that's plunged into the earth, let's say, just like a point being made. The queen has a flexibility to her clarity that serves us. It not only serves us, but it is absolutely necessary. And it's just a beautiful thing that both of these qualities are coming through right now. So the Queen November was this moment of like, it really felt to me like seeing through a cult, like seeing it to whatever degree you needed to see it. And in whatever area of your life, it needed to be shown. It felt like that kind of clarity, like, oh, fuck no. Like, I am not participating in this anymore. Or like, wow, I know exactly what direction I need to go in, or, something to that effect. Then the Queen comes in and adds this flexible quality to that knowing. So the knowing is firm and flexible at the same time, which means that our ability to know the truth, know our truth as it aligns with the truth, which you feel through your heart, and to hold that as central within ourselves, but let it transform through different scenarios. Like, okay, let me try and bring this down through an example so I don't just sound like I'm full of shit. Okay, let's take a very literal scenario. Let's say we literally learn some kind of literal fact about the bullshit of the false matrix. Okay, so we learn something, it is backed up, like there is evidence. This isn't just a theory, this is like evidence that this is the case. Let's say that there's, I don't know, try not to pick polarizing things. Just something. There's documents to support it. There's true, real evidence. It's a truth. Okay, you had that experience in November. You got this information, this intel, and you're like, oh shit, okay, well, I see things for what they are. Then you need to exist in the world with other people with this new knowing, right? Which, as we all know, can be challenging. Welcome to everybody's 2020 and 2021. You learn something very powerful that completely changes your mindset, and your natural instinct is to try and inform everybody else that you care about, and maybe people you don't care about either. Maybe you get angry about it. Maybe you are scared about it, and you're trying to tell everybody, you're trying to like wake people up and tell everybody this thing that you've learned that there's evidence everywhere in support of. If you become rigid in that perspective, even though it started out as beautiful clarity, a beautiful piece of truth, if you are firm and yet rigid in that perspective, that's where things like dogma come in. That's where things like cults are created. That's where things like, religious fervor is rooted. And it doesn't even have to be about something spiritual. It can be about like political ideology. It can be about philosophy, whatever. It's like militant vegans who insist that everybody else who eats something different is, just buying into the lie and they're doing it wrong. Like it doesn't matter what the belief is, any belief. And there can be truth to the belief. But if you are rigid in it, it becomes problematic. It has to be brought into a state of flexibility, which means that you've learned this fact, completely life-altering. Your mind is blown. You want to tell everybody. But you need to employ this energy of the Queen of Swords, which means you navigate through the different conversations in your life, the different circumstances, the different relationships and relationship dynamics, and you navigate fluidly around it. You can find the flexibility to not break and like bend and snap on your own rigidity, which means that you're not trying to force your beliefs on somebody else. You're not insisting that your spouse agrees with you and sees it the way you do. You're not engaging the freaking grocery store checkout clerk in a conversation that they just don't have the bandwidth for, and they're just trying to get through their stupid shift. You know what I mean? You're not insisting that it's your way or your way is right or the way you see it is correct and that everybody else has to adopt it. And yet, The clarity has changed you on the inside, and you're holding it within yourself. It is your center. You are now, your center of gravity has shifted around this truth, this new understanding, this new clarity. It's like our consciousness, truly, it feels like it's being liberated, which is a huge deal, because our consciousness is what mediates our magic. Like, our magic is dormant because our consciousness suppresses it, because we were, very heavily penalized for many, many, many generations across many, 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 many cultures for having magic, for having psychic abilities. We have been deliberately enslaved. And now our consciousness is being liberated, and it's a huge big deal. And we need to learn how to wield that clarity and that understanding of truth, whatever nugget of it we received in November or have yet to receive very soon as the echoes of November, switch into December. We need to be able to hold that as central within ourselves and do so with a flexibility that allows us to move through this reality and through our relationship dynamics in a way that is harmonized. And I'm not talking about just keeping the peace or being non-confrontational. Those are different things. And being non-confrontational really means that you have trauma around confrontation. So it's not that. It's like, I don't know. The way it comes through to me is I can see the objective. I see what we're doing. I see what this ascension is. On so many levels, it is our consciousness first, and then it trickles down into our body. Our consciousness is graduating beyond the illusion of the fourth dimension. I was just saying this in my manifestation boot camp, and I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again, so just listen up. We think we're trapped in the physical. We think we're trapped in the third dimension, and we're not trapped here at all. Not even a tiny little bit. Like, we really are not trapped here. We are docked here. We're docked in the physical structure of this human body, but we astral travel all the time when we're sleeping. We walk through dream time when we're sleeping. We sometimes learn how to astral travel while we're awake. We can consciousness journey whenever the fuck we want. We die at some point. We're not trapped here, not even a tiny little bit. The place we're trapped is the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is where the story exists. And when we believe the story, and we believe that we are powerless to the story, where we're like immersed in the movie and we're like, ugh. Like, think about it. Honestly, it really is like virtual reality. Like, your higher self, whatever, is outside of here and just having a great time, and then puts on the VR headset and you're suddenly switched into this body and all of the sensory information that comes through it, and you're immersed in that. It's like so visceral, so intense. That's us. And then you become acclimatized to being here. And then you like start to think that this is what's real. And when you're living at this level of only the human consciousness, not the gamer consciousness, you're like the character, but not the gamer. When you're only the character, you become trapped in the story. And because you're trapped in the story and you're unaware of it, you contribute to the maintenance of the illusion of that story. That's what we're transcending. That's the place where we get trapped. We are transcending beyond the sort of final layers of the fourth dimensional story so that we can shift into the fifth dimension of consciousness, which is heart-centeredness, where you just see everything for what it is, and your overwhelming state of being is total openness and compassion and love, because there's nothing to defend yourself against. You feel on an experiential, like inarguable truth level that everyone is you. You are everyone. Not in a, drug-induced 1960s hippie kind of way, in a truly these are facts kind of way. That's what we're moving into. So right now, as we're moving through the final edges of the fourth dimension, we're learning how to navigate the minefield of the story with dexterity, like a ninja. We are learning to be fourth dimensional ninjas. We're noticing the tripwires, okay? We're noticing the tripwires. We're noticing those like laser beams that are protecting the gem at the center and the fancy gem museum or whatever. I don't know. And we are in our ninja suits, and we have cultivated the nimbleness and dexterity in our consciousness to be able to spot and feel the minds. It's like our bodies become dowsing rods for the buried landmines of like shit show conversations with people, or like being pulled back into the drama of the narrative. I'm definitely not saying that we're never going to trigger unpleasant events ever again in our lives. That's not the point of any of this. And of course we are. I mean, when I'm talking about the buried landmines, I mean the false matrix traps that want to pull your consciousness, your ascending, liberating consciousness back down into polarity by arguing with other people about your stance on whatever the fuck. Or by seeing somebody as other than you quietly, even if you're not arguing with them, quietly seeing them as other than you in a way that pushes them away from you and maintains like a you versus me kind of thing. Like just because they don't see things the way that you do, because they're not as awake as you are, or because they hold certain like prejudices in their heart or whatever. You know, you don't have to be verbally arguing with somebody in order to be in polarity consciousness. When you're surfing social media and you see somebody's triggery post about some kind of, thing that's going on, and they're sharing their opinion and whatever, when you buy into the false matrix trap to go into that polarizing way of dealing with it, you get pulled into like, well, I identify with this, or like, I agree with this, and that makes that person wrong because their post triggered me, or you have the urge to like leave a comment that makes somebody else feel like their perspective is wrong. That's what I'm talking about. We're becoming ninjas, so we don't buy into that shit anymore. We don't buy into it internally within ourselves. We don't buy into it in our dealings with other people. And it's super important to do that, because if we ever want to get out of this goddamn mess we're in, which I don't know about you, but I want to, like, I can see some of the things that we are designed to create and that we can create here. If we're not constantly like draining all of our energy to the false matrix and this like polarity consciousness, if we want to get out of this, then the only thing we can do is not engage with it, is not contribute to it. Because it's not, when I say not engage, I literally mean at the subtle levels of your own consciousness and what you give your attention to. And of course, perfection is not required. It's never required. It's not even feasible. So let's also not get hung up on that false matrix trap. I am going to, just as much as the next person, I am going to have a split 7-second reaction when I read somebody's polarizing post. That's okay. That just happens. That's a human thing. Eventually we will outgrow that. But right now it's okay that we have those split second instantaneous reactions. And those are actually valuable because they tell us a lot about what's still living inside of us that isn't true. It's just a false program. We don't have to feel ashamed about it. We were falsely programmed to see things in terms of polarity and us and them and me versus you, all that kind of stuff. So when that little ugly program rears its head initially, you don't have to take it personally or feel any shame about yourself or try and push those thoughts away or anything like that. You just notice it. If you have the bandwidth to be like, oh, okay, interesting, that's still inside of me, then great. If you can't, then just let yourself have that tiny little momentary reaction. Then just let it go. Doesn't mean anything about you. And then pull your attention back out of that false matrix suck of darkness that just wants to pull your beautiful, ascending, expanding consciousness back down into its gross clutches, where you just operate at a lower level, a denser level of ignorance, and it just siphons off of you, because that's straight up what's happening. When we're in those lower level drama, trauma, polarized, you have the wrong perception, I have the right perception kind of places, we are no longer in our creative zone of genius. We're just creating it's almost like every time we indulge those perceptions, we create another tether or another cord from ourselves into the darkness, another cord. And it's just like, we're just feeding that level of consciousness. That's where you want to stay and be my guest. You're also not a threat to me if you choose to see things that way. But I'm assuming if you're still listening to me, that's probably not how you want to see things. I don't think you would vibe with me for this long that you'd still be here listening to me at this point, rambling on about all this stuff. But anyway, so that's the overall guidance for December, is to cultivate that beautiful flexibility where we hold the clarity of that truth that has come through to us and will continue. Like, also, I gotta say, November and December, the energies are just the necessary precursors for what's coming in January, February, and March, and beyond. I'm starting to feel beyond June for 2024 as well, but it's like, a lot of consciousness is coming back to us, a lot of consciousness, like a lot of awareness. It'll, in a lot of ways, I think it'll almost feel like having heightened senses. Like we are able to perceive more information from each other, from the news, from the physical environment around us, and it'll feel a lot like noise, like constant noise that's hard to turn off until we get used to it. It's just going to be a lot. I anticipate, it almost feels like a gigantic brain growth, but I don't know if it'll be reflected through our physical brains actually. But, you know, if I was seeing it in an image, it would be like a huge like brain morph where our brain just like suddenly goes, whoa, and new wrinkles form, new fissures, and like we just have new faculties available to us that we wouldn't also necessarily call psychic gifts. It just feels like we're going to be able to perceive more information within the bandwidth that we are occupying in these physical bodies. Anyway, so December also, just to describe what it's going to feel like to be alive as a human this month too, though. Honestly, it also feels peaceful and quiet, which I'm personally super, super jazzed for. There's the holiday hustle bustle feeling there. So it's not completely peaceful and quiet the same way that January kind of can be. It's got a low level of like energy moving, which feels good, but it also feels it just feels like the calm void before, I'll call it the calm before the storm, but the storm in the case of like the new year feels like a lightning storm of amazingness. And yet it's so much amazingness that it's almost feels like too much and too intense. And like we might kind of be like, oh my God, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. But so I'm using the analogy of the calm before the storm for December, but the storm doesn't mean a bad thing. But yeah, December feels like this little void period, this little calm void period where we get to continue to integrate whatever changes have come through for us since the beginning of October, maybe since the end of September. We're integrating and more clarity is coming in, but it's probably going to be a little bit gentler and the pieces are going to fit basically more easily into the clarity that dropped in November. Like it's like little accessory pieces are going to come to fill out the picture that we are now viewing as reality. And we're integrating it, and there's some spaciousness, and there's a mundane quality to life as we deal with the holidays, because I don't know, I mean, like, are they even optional? Unless you're totally a single person and you just, you know, the way that you roll is like, you don't want any friends, you don't want any family, maybe you have a dog, you're just like, I can't do people. Then the holidays are optional, and yet they aren't because everybody else is doing the whole holiday thing and you can't not be aware of it. You can't go into the stores without hearing it. You know what I mean? And seeing it everywhere. So there's that mundane quality to the holidays where we're just kind of like, we're here, we are doing the holiday thing for better or for worse. We're just participating in this weird tradition that has a lot of energy behind it. And there's a groundedness to that that is very soothing, at least to me. And it's not to be found in like the Christmas dinner or even the people. It's almost like it's a grounding feeling to be like, okay, and every year there's always the holidays. I don't know if that makes sense. There's like, I always kind of like, okay, it's kind of like no matter what is going on energetically, I always know December is going to be structured like this. Like the first few weeks, it's going to feel like, oh my God, the holidays are coming. And then like, yeah, the first 2 weeks, the holidays are coming. And then the third week's like, Jesus, the holidays are here. And then you're like, bam, 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 holidays, holidays, holidays. And then you're like, and then more holidays, New Year's, bah. And then, in January, you're like, oh my God, I'm so hungover. Even if I don't drink or consume anything mind altering, I'm so hungover just by the energy of the holiday. There's like a comfort in knowing that it's going to go like that in whatever way it goes for you. That's how it feels for me. And that mundaneness is it's just this beautiful little space to just feel almost like distracted by the holidays, which allows you to process the other personal stuff that's coming through for you right now. The other thing about the holidays, though, that I find very interesting is that it feels hollower. It feels hollow. It's felt hollow for a few years. Have you guys felt that too? A lot of things have felt hollow in a way that's has been disconcerting. And when I say hollow, I don't even necessarily mean to imply that it's negative or it's evil or anything like that. It's just like there used to be a warmth to the holidays, let's say 10 years ago. 15 years ago. I'm not sure. It's hard for me to put my finger on it because I wasn't always as conscious of it as I am now. There was a warmth to the holidays, including all the commercial bullshit and like going to the malls and going like holiday shopping, blah, 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 whatever stuff. There was still a warmth. Like there was still a lot of collective energy there. And now it feels like a lot of collective energy is gone. And there's this sort of like hollow husk to the holidays in a lot of ways that it's almost like a phantom residue because we don't even really know how to let go of it. That's kind of how it feels. And yet, I also want to say, like and emphasize, I don't feel like it's a reflection of anything negative or evil per se. It's more of an awareness that our consciousness is, even if we're not aware of it as humans, or we're only like marginally aware of it, the consciousness that is our collective that animates this whole fourth dimensional story is already unplugging from things like the holidays, little by little. And so there is less juiciness there. And the energy that has been unplugged from there isn't gone, it's just moved somewhere else. And so it kind of also feels to me like if you really want to have fun with this month, you can kind of see it as like a little quiet personal scavenger hunt or treasure hunt to find the places where the warmth and the authenticity of the holidays, where it has gone instead. So maybe you find the warmth in, I don't know, it's so hard to talk about individual things. Without wanting to sound cheesy, maybe you find the warmth in like walking around in the pre-holiday period and just handing out hot beverages to the homeless people in your area or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm definitely not trying to be all Charles Dickens and be like, oh, or like everybody like, oh, the true spirit of Christmas is in, charity or whatever. I mean, that's obviously true. It's obviously true. But I just mean to say that the warmth that was found in the holidays is shifted somewhere else. It's not gone, it's just shifted. And you can look for it. You can find where it is. And maybe it's in something as obvious as, charity work or being loving to each other, but maybe it's also just somewhere else that seems a little bit unexpected. Like maybe it's shifted back to nature. Maybe it has shifted more towards planning for spring. I don't know. It's really hard for me to put it in words. And I think it's because I don't exactly know where it's shifted either. But the balance of our creative power, our consciousness, our attention is shifting to somewhere else. And I just find that interesting. Okay. Final thoughts for December. Oh yeah. How could I forget? Okay. So like I said, this is the little calm void before the storm. There's still that frenetic level of busyness of the holiday. And for all of its hollowness, there still, though, is a lot of happiness to be found in, what the holiday means for us. Usually it's in reconnecting with people that we use the holidays as an excuse to see each other at this time of year or talk to each other, something like that, right? Enjoy it as much as you can. Don't worry. I say this to myself. Try not to worry too much about accomplishing or achieving much in December. There's going to be time for that. Believe me. Just let December be as spacious as you can allow it to be with the holidays and all that stuff. (2024) is... I've been trying to think of how to characterize it. I am going to pull tarot cards for it, but I almost feel like I don't even need to because the energy of it is so clear to me. It's crazy. But I feel like maybe the characterizing word for 2024 is going to be growth, possibly expansion. And I know those words just sound like words and they get used a lot by me, by others. But if you have the wherewithal, take a minute and tune in to what growth and expansion really mean. It's in a lot of ways, it can be a very euphoric feeling because to stagnate is very uncomfortable. But also growth pushes our edges. That's what growth is. And that's very uncomfortable and very confronting. And growth always is both initiated by, but also, it also initiates a lot of change. So in 2024, I feel like a lot of change is the name of the game. A lot of change. Big change, little change, totally internal change, external change, like a lot of change. Just a lot. And we are being called to grow through it all. I feel like there might be periods in 2024 where we're just kind of like, oh my God, I just want to go back to being able to just, I don't know, watch Grey's Anatomy and eat a box of cookies on the couch. And you can have your moments to do that. Okay. You can, but for the most part, you can't do that as your coping strategy for life anymore. You have to grow through what's coming. You have to. I don't even think it's optional. I genuinely don't. Like when I look at people who aren't awake, I just see that they're also being required to grow. In 2024, they already have been. We've all been going through a lot of change, of course, but I feel like it's a lot in 2024. And they have been required to grow, and they're going to be required to grow, but they don't fully get that that's what's happening. So they're fighting it the whole time and they're feeling like there's something wrong. They must be doing something wrong. What do I need to fix during the times when the growth is really uncomfortable? Whereas what I'm saying is during those times, just know that this is just the fucking way it is. And you just do your best to melt into it and let yourself be transformed. That's the best strategy available. So the reason I'm sharing this, and I'll go into way greater depth in the year ahead reading in January, but the reason I'm saying this is because I've been getting the message for a while. I should have been on here to share it with you guys earlier, but I've been so busy, is that we need to prepare ourselves to handle all this growth and handle all this change. And the way that we prepare for it is by setting ourselves up with positive coping strategies that support our expansion and our growth rather than hinder it. So, if you have negative coping strategies, like if you still smoke cigarettes, this would really be the time to get serious about swapping that out for something else. Swapping that out for something that is going to give you as much of a little like burst of pleasure or relaxation or whatever. Like really, I think a lot of the time when people are doing something like smoking, they're taking a little piece back for themselves because life is so stressful that they're like, this is for me. I got to take this for me. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think we just have to do that sometimes. When life is really stressful, we have to be like, no, I'm taking something for myself. And you just have to make sure that what you're taking is conducive to your growth. That's the only way I can put it. It's conducive to your ability to continue to handle the amount of change that you experience. So, so it's like coming up with crafting really great music playlists for yourself with music that like really inspires you and reminds you of, who you are, why you're here, like whatever connects you. Do you know what I mean? It just makes you feel connected. And swap that out for music that keeps you in the drama loop. Same with TV shows or movies or books or like any kind of entertainment, like fictional thing. Certainly the same for any kind of like more biography, autobiography, documentary, those kind of like reality learning pieces of entertainment, podcast, things like that. Like just start to notice like when I am wigging out and I just need to numb out, I just need to disconnect from how much change is happening in my consciousness and in my life. And I just need to like be on the couch in my comfies with my blankie and a whole bunch of food. Try and set yourself up so that food is actually helpful to you. So that the series on TV that you need to just disappear into for 2 weeks is a series that like it further expands your consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm getting at? It's like setting yourself up with a little survival kit. Kind of like women will do this before they have a baby sometimes, not always. But when they know they're going to go into labor, they'll make themselves like a labor playlist. And that's the whole idea behind Lamaze and hypnobirthing and all that stuff is you're going and you're preparing yourself in advance and you're giving yourself some strategies or you're creating a place internally to go to and draw upon when the sensations are becoming really, really intense. And that's ultimately the guidance that I'm getting for us to do to prepare ourselves for the early new year when, all this consciousness expansion is like really initiated. Is to just create for yourself the things, the foods, the indulgences, the places for you to just disappear into when you need to. And the final piece is just also to pick the direction that you want to face and be prepared to move in that direction. So set yourself up to move in that direction. If that means taking a new course or a new program, if that means setting yourself up with a new sort of like strategy, like if you decide that, in September, you want to move to this place, like you're shifting your focus with that goal in mind. Pick a goal and make sure it's a goal that feels really good for you, even if it makes no sense to anybody else, even if it doesn't sound impressive to anybody else. Who cares about what anybody else thinks? Not relevant at all. It can't be an ego surface goal of like, oh, I should get this job because then my parents will finally get off my back and think that I'm successful. nuts to that. It's something that is like, I know this is what I want to do with myself. Like whether it's for my whole entire life, or it's just like for the next year or the next 5 years or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just like, I know that this is a direction I want to move, because we're all going to be required to move. And so you might as well move in the direction that you actually want to go. Okay. I think that's all I have for December. Let me just see if anybody... Thanks, Sapphire, for telling me that my eyes are glowing today. Okay, perfect. Amazing. I hope this serves you. I hope that you're able to draw upon some of this. I know it was a lot moving through the month of November, but we've got this. I just can't wait to come back for the January year ahead. You're just going to have to wait a month for that, though, and enjoy your holiday season. Enjoy this little quiet void and the frenetic buzziness of the holidays. Further integration of the clarity, the flexibility of your own consciousness, and preparing for a huge amount of growth in the new year. Okay, love you.